I'm Miss Dutton, your librarian. I'm going to be doing a short video about choosing a good book. So when adults say good book, often you think it means a classic or a difficult book, so Shakespeare or Dickens. What I'm talking about is finding a book that is good for you. So sometimes, only occasionally, I have students telling me that reading is boring. Firstly, let me tell you that only boring people get bored, so what does that say about you? Secondly, it seems that people have maybe read one book that they found really boring and assume that all reading is boring. Maybe they read a book that was too difficult for them, too old-fashioned, one that didn't relate with the character. That's fine, but if you eat lettuce, you don't assume that all food is boring. You don't listen to Coldplay and assume that all music is awful. You don't go on holiday to Dubai and say you're never going to go on holiday again. Well, if you like Coldplay or Dubai or lettuce, that is totally fine. The whole thing is that everyone has their own taste. So I read a lot. Obviously I really like books. Doesn't mean that I haven't read books that I think are really boring, or read a book where I can't even get through the first chapter. There are plenty of books that I find boring. For example, you couldn't pay me enough money in the world to read John Terry's autobiography. I wouldn't do it. Twilight, I put it off for years. A year 10 made me read it. I could understand why people enjoyed it, but I found it really boring. I thought the main character was quite weak, and Dan Brown, The Da Vinci Code, it's never appealed to me, even though it's a bestseller. But that's fine. If you want to read those books, that's great. So I wouldn't mind reading Bradley Wiggins' biography or Bram Stoker's Dracula. Yes, it's a classic, but it's also really creepy. I find it really interesting. The Hunger Games is a book that loads of people read when it came out and discussed, and I really enjoyed it. It had a really strong female character in it. But if you read those books and you think they're boring, or you look at them and say, I would never read that, that is not a problem. As I said, it's a matter of taste. So the next problem is people say to me that reading is hard. I think quite often people think that if they find reading hard, then they're stupid, and that's not the case. There are loads and loads of reasons why people find reading hard, and some of the people that find reading hard are fiercely intelligent. It might be that you speak a different language at home, or you learn a different language growing up and so the letters sound different. It might be that when you were at primary school you had issues at home, so you weren't really focused and missed out on reading and haven't caught up. It might be that you're really hyper or have ADHD and find it really hard to concentrate. It might be that you're dyslexic, so the words move around the page, it's really difficult. That's not a problem, or LSAs, and Ms. Rodriguez will help you, will give you the support. If you just stop reading because you find it hard, it's only going to get harder. What you need to do is find a book that you can access, it's easy enough to understand, but it challenges you a little bit. And don't think that all books are easy or babyish. We've got plenty of really, really easy books that are aimed at teenagers. We've got plenty of books for genius children that are aimed at little babies. It's not a problem. Discuss it with me. If you find reading hard, just tell me, or you can even just say, I want to read a quite a quick, easy book, just on the train. You don't have to tell me if you find it hard, because sometimes it can be embarrassing. But please do not let it put you off. So next thing is reading style. So at school, probably age 11 to 12, I kind of stopped reading because we had to read books in class, and often we'd read it in paragraphs. So one person in the corner would read it, and you'd take turns reading paragraphs. And I would dread when it came around to me. I didn't like reading aloud, and so what I would do is I'd count, I'm the 8th person, I'd find the 8th paragraph, I'd just read it in my head and practice the words and make sure I knew what it meant so I didn't feel stupid. But that meant I wasn't listening to what other people were reading. By the time it got around to me, I was too nervous. I didn't really get absorbed in the books. It really put me off because reading became really uncomfortable. However, as an adult, I started to realise that I like reading on trains and buses. I like sitting on my living room floor and reading. I like reading on holiday, and that's probably about it. I can't read really in a loud room. So I really envy the students and people in general who can read anywhere. You see students in the library who are sitting there absorbed fully into a book, and there's millions of people running around them, but that's fine. Not everyone is going to be able to do that, and that's not a problem. You just need to find where and when you like to read. So often people are put off and thought, oh, I'm getting to age 14, I really need to read fiction books that will help me get higher levels. I need to read classics, I definitely need to read Dickens, I need to read Black Beauty, I need to read Romeo and Juliet, and they'll get really fixated on that. That's not really true. I mean, those books are great for you. Some classics are really, really great to read because they're the kind of book that most people will read in their lifetime. However, if you want to read cookbooks or graphic novels or just football biographies, that's not a problem. If you just want to read magazines and the occasional short book, that's totally cool. Find the books that you enjoy, because all reading is good for you. My only advice would be try and read different things. So don't just read manga. Maybe read manga and look at Guinness World Records. Try and read some fiction and some non-fiction. But don't let anybody ever tell you what you can or cannot read. That decision is yours. So Maya Angelou says that any book that helps a child to form a habit of reading, so any book, or to make reading one of his deep and continuing needs is good for him. So, any book that you want. Next problem. People sometimes say reading is for nerds. This kind of upsets me because firstly I think that students at our school are too cool to really care about peer pressure. I don't think that, someone saying, oh, it's nerdy, should put people off, but sometimes it does. It also upsets me that other students call people nerds because of that. If I see someone that's enthusiastic about something, I don't try and belittle them. If I see someone that's really good at something that I can't do, I'm not going to make them feel stupid about it so they don't do it anymore. If I see someone who's good at computers, which I'm not good at, I'm not going to make them feel small about it. I think that's a really bad thing to do. I think that people need to stop doing that. I think people shouldn't care. They should do whatever they like. If they like knitting, go knit. If you want to read, read. Also, John Green, who's the author of The Fault in Our Stars and Will Grayson, some books we've got in the library at the moment which are really, really popular, he said that nerds, like us, so me, him, are allowed to be unironically enthusiastic about stuff. Nerds are allowed to love stuff, like jump up and down in your chair, can't control yourself, love it. So when people call people nerds, mostly what they're saying is, you like stuff, which is not a good insult at all. So, you need to choose a good book that you like, so a style of book, so a graphic novel or a fiction book, anything like that, about a topic that you like, and a book that you like because you can understand it, one that's not too easy, not too difficult, and read where and when you like. Lastly, if that doesn't convince you, maybe this unicorn riding on a flying book will.